Welcome to VNT. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The world is witnessing a seismic shift in global power, a transformation that is redrawing the lines of influence and challenging the status quo that has defined international relations for decades. At the heart of this change, China and Russia are forging a partnership that is deeper and more consequential than ever before, moving beyond mere cooperation to a calculated, strategic alliance. This is more than a diplomatic gesture. It's a deliberate alignment of interests, a move designed to challenge the US-led order and reshape the global balance of power in their favor. Their growing collaboration is forcing nations around the world to reconsider old alliances, question established loyalties, and rethink the very future of global politics. Both China and Russia have long felt constrained by Western dominance, politically, economically, and militarily. Now, by working together, they are actively seeking to counterbalance American influence and carve out a new sphere of power. Recent intelligence reports reveal a dramatic surge in Chinese military exports to Russia, including not just basic supplies, but critical components for advanced drones and sophisticated radar systems, technology that is now being deployed on the front lines in Ukraine. In fact, 60% of foreign parts found in Russian military hardware now originate from China. This steady flow of technology and equipment is sustaining Russia's war effort, complicating Western strategies, and dividing the focus of NATO and its allies. But the impact of this partnership extends far beyond the battlefield in Ukraine. Together, China and Russia are reshaping global trade routes, influencing military strategy, and challenging the very foundations of international institutions. They're expanding coalitions like BRICS, inviting new members, and building alternative financial systems that bypass the US dollar, aiming to reduce Western leverage over the global economy. Their militaries are conducting joint exercises on land, at sea, and in the air, signaling a new level of operational cooperation and sending a clear message to the world about their shared ambitions. This is not an alliance built on shared values or ideology, but on mutual interest and pragmatic calculation, an active effort to construct a new world order that better serves their national goals. The world is no longer witnessing a passive response to Western dominance, but the deliberate construction of a rival center of power, one that is rapidly gaining momentum and reshaping the future of international relations. To understand China's support for Russia, you have to look through Beijing's strategic lens. This isn't just about friendship or ideology, it's about long-term national interests and a vision for the future global order. China's leaders see the world as a chessboard, where every move is calculated to maximize their own security, influence, and economic growth. By backing Russia, China keeps the US and Europe bogged down in Ukraine, buying time to pursue its own ambitions in Asia. With Western powers distracted and resources tied up, China faces less pressure in its own neighborhood, especially around sensitive areas like the South China Sea and Taiwan. This strategic distraction is a key part of Beijing's calculations. Economically, Russia's isolation from the West has made it a dependent partner for China. Moscow now supplies China with cheap energy, oil, gas, and coal, at favorable rates, and opens up new markets for Chinese goods, technology, and investment. This deepening economic relationship gives China leverage and helps insulate it from Western economic pressure. This partnership also lets China test its technology in real conflict zones, everything from surveillance systems to drones and cyber tools, without risking direct military involvement. It's a proving ground for Chinese innovation, and a way to refine tactics for future conflicts. China also sees the sweeping Western sanctions on Russia as a warning for its own future, especially regarding Taiwan. If a crisis erupts over Taiwan, Beijing knows it could face similar economic isolation and pressure from the US and its allies. By helping Russia withstand sanctions and building alternative financial systems, like new payment networks and currency swaps, China is working to sanction-proof itself. These efforts are about creating resilience, so that China can weather any future economic storm brought on by geopolitical tensions. But this is about more than economics. China's support for Russia is a message of defiance to the West, and a signal to the global South that there are alternatives to Western dominance. It's about building new alliances and shaping a world where no single power can dictate the rules. China is positioning itself as a leader among nations seeking a multipolar world, one not dominated by any single superpower. Through forums like BRICS and the Belt and Road Initiative, Beijing is forging new partnerships and expanding its influence across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Its support for Russia is a cornerstone of this campaign, aiming to reshape the global balance of power. By standing with Moscow, China is challenging the existing order and signaling its readiness to play a leading role in world affairs. For China, this partnership is both a shield, protecting its interests from Western pressure, and a sword, giving it new tools and allies in the era of great power competition. The stakes are global, and the message is clear. China intends to chart its own course, shape the future, and ensure its voice is heard on the world stage. The expansion of BRICS is central to the new world order China and Russia envision. Once just a group of emerging economies, BRICS now includes countries like South Africa, Iran, and Indonesia, representing over half the world's population. Their goal: challenge US dollar dominance and Western-led financial institutions. Members are trading in local currencies and building new payment systems like the New Development Bank to bypass Western control. But BRICS is far from unified. Internal divisions persist, with countries like India and Brazil wary of becoming anti-Western tools. New members bring their own agendas, complicating consensus. Still, the bloc's momentum is undeniable, offering developing nations leverage and alternatives to Western influence. The rise of BRICS signals a growing demand for a more balanced, multipolar global system. The economic battlefield is now the front line of global rivalry. China wields its dominance over rare earth minerals as leverage, threatening Western industries and defense supply chains. The US and Europe scramble to diversify, but breaking dependence on China is slow and costly. Meanwhile, the West uses financial power to freeze Russian assets and fund Ukraine, risking global trust in financial systems. Economic warfare escalates, tariffs, sanctions, and retaliatory moves fracture the global economy into competing blocs. Political allegiance increasingly dictates trade and investment, replacing the old integrated system. The world is moving toward a fractured, high-stakes economic order. The US and Europe strive for unity against the China-Russia challenge, supporting Ukraine and tightening alliances in Europe and the Indo-Pacific. But internal strains are mounting. Sanctions and energy crises test political resolve and economic stability. Debates over using frozen Russian assets reveal cracks in Western consensus. In Asia, the US strengthens alliances and security frameworks like the Quad and AUKUS to counter China. Yet, confronting two major powers on separate fronts stretches Western resources thin, exactly as China and Russia intend. The West's ability to maintain unity and persuade non-aligned nations will define its strength in this new era. The world isn't simply split between East and West. Today's global landscape is far more intricate and dynamic than a simple binary division. Many nations refuse to pick sides, instead carving out their own unique paths and priorities on the world stage. India, for example, skillfully balances ties with both Russia and the US, maintaining strong relationships with each while pursuing its own interests. Rather than aligning fully with any bloc, India seeks autonomy and flexibility, aiming to maximize its influence and protect its sovereignty. Other rising powers like Brazil, South Africa, and Indonesia also prioritize their national interests, often acting as independent players in global affairs. They're drawn to BRICS, not out of opposition to the West, but because it promises a fairer, more balanced global system where their voices matter. Even within the so-called Western bloc, perspectives are far from unified. There are significant differences in priorities and strategies. Some European nations, wary of economic fallout and the risks of escalating tensions, prefer engagement and dialogue with China over outright confrontation, hoping to safeguard their economies and maintain stability. This multipolar reality means global influence is up for grabs, with no single power able to dictate terms unchallenged. Both major blocs now compete vigorously for the allegiance of middle powers, using aid, investment, and diplomatic overtures as tools of persuasion. The choices these countries make, whether to align, remain neutral, or forge new coalitions, will profoundly shape the future world order. The emerging system is complex and unpredictable, with new alliances forming and old ones dissolving. In this era, alliances are fluid, loyalties shift, and there is no longer a clear binary dividing the world. The competition for influence between nations, blocs, and emerging powers is now the defining feature of global politics, shaping the world's future in real time. As of October 2025, the global order is more uncertain than ever. The China-Russia partnership accelerates the shift from US dominance to a world of rival blocs and new institutions. This transition could bring more voices to the table, or spark instability and conflict. Economic and military competition is rising and the risk of miscalculation grows. For nations and businesses, the era of seamless globalization is ending. Alliances are fluid, and choices are harder. The future depends on how leaders manage this power shift. Will it lead to cooperation or chaos? The world stands at a crossroads, a more just multipolar order, or a more dangerous divided one. The decisions made now will echo for decades to come.